I work for FASTA, which is the Foundation for the Economics of Sustainability, and I brought my job to the village with me. I was very fortunate. I was able to move the office from Dublin. Yeah, Bruce and I were involved with a group called Dublin Co-Housing for quite a few years, and Dublin Co-Housing was in Dublin, and it was trying to set up a co-housing community, obviously, and we were friends with and running in parallel with the village for a few years. So we thought of those as our country cousins, and we were the city cousins, and that we would hopefully have interactions. And unfortunately, the co-housing didn't work out. The project went up on the shelf. It was at the time of the Celtic Tiger, really rising land prices. People were getting really scared. We wanted to have our own house, and we wanted to be involved in an interesting, dynamic, not an ordinary housing situation. And so after long thinking, we decided to join the village. We've been so busy since we moved down with building the house and work, and then Leontine, our daughter. We haven't really, I suppose I feel we haven't had time to know what it'll be like in the long term. But it certainly is a challenge, because we were living in the city centre in Dublin for 10 years, 11 years. And before that, we lived in the city in Toronto in Canada. So moving, it's the first time for me living in the countryside, and I find it quite a challenge. We have never had a car, and so living in Cloughjordan without a car is very challenging. It depends on the business, because a lot of business now is internet based, or you're not tied to the actual location that you're in which case then if you could be anywhere, well then Cloughjordan would be a good place, because there's a lot of inspiration around. There's now a telecommunication system being set up by Vine, so you won't be limited. Obviously rents are cheap if you need to rent a place, and there's a fair amount of places to rent, I think. So, and I think it's that there is a push and a drive within the village to be sustainable job-wise. So I think in that way it's probably good. And has been established for about the last 10 years, and as the name suggests, FASTA, members of FASTA, the founding members of FASTA, including some village members, were examining the economic system and realising that many of the problems that exist in the world today are because of the systems that we find or we have established, and that now seem to be self-running, and we can tinker around. For example, with the banking collapse now, people look and say, oh, if we don't have done this, if we don't have done that, but the system that is in place, literally the global system that is in place, makes it almost impossible to do anything, to do things differently. So FASTA looks at those systems and tries to find alternatives and to communicate what those possibilities are. And we've branched out. We're not only based in economics, though economics governs everything, but we look at climate change, food security, getting carbon out of the atmosphere into the soil, taxation, smart taxes, looking at ways of making the taxation system more environmentally friendly, collapse, looking at the future collapse and how we can try and avoid that. FASTA's remit is huge, it's broad and it's deep, and so it's a fairly unique organisation within the environmental movement in Ireland. I'm the coordinator of the land use group since I moved down at the end of January. Land use is one of the pivotal primary activities in the village. So much of the village life centres around, obviously, the land, what we're building on the land, enjoying ourselves in the land, promoting biodiversity, education, agriculture, food production. All of these things are centred on the land, so land use is very key in that. The land of the village as being divided into three parts: the residential area, which links from the main street, it continues the Cloughjordan main street and integrates at that level, and then forestry area, woodlands, and then farmland. But in our work with land use, we have much further developed and seen as we've gone along that there is a much more complex picture, and the land plan that we have come up with reflects that. And we see the land has been divided into four sort of parts: the residential, the farming, forestry, woodlands, including biodiversity, but also this work amenity aspect, because we really, with the enterprise centre, the district heating scheme, possibilities for recycling centre, reuse centre, there's so much more. And so it's a very, very complex system of networks and we need obviously to be planning with those in mind. And then there's obviously the landscaping that will go with the in the residential area, and we hope to have food production throughout the whole systems, which I believe should have started out on the village, being a part of the village, but it was established separately as a separate organisation, and it's running really well now, and we're delighted to work with the farm. I'd say most of the members of the farm have links with the eco-village, whether they're members or they're friends, they live nearby. And I think the village, now that in land use, we've been negotiating with the farm to help us to take over the farming area of our land, because we don't have the resources right now to develop it. And so there will be much stronger links, because they will literally be partly on our land. And I think in the future we will be really glad of this. I mean, right now it doesn't seem so important to a lot of people, but I think with the times that are coming, if you, for example, notice with the fires in Russia lately, the government is saying no more exporting of grain, and that's going to have a knock-on effect in Ireland. That's just a simple example. I saw the IFA president tell Irish farmers the other day to hold out for higher grain prices, don't just sell them. So we're going to see grain prices rise. I think those kinds of things will only escalate, and we will be very, very fortunate if we are in a position to provide for our own food security. And it's also that it's an educational thing. We have to I think we're a model to show other people what is necessary and what can be done. An eco-village is an intentional community. Most of the communities are accidental. People come and live in an area for job or family reasons, and then they build their community once they get there. Whereas in the village we chose to come together. And I think that creates something, I mean, it is unique, and I think it creates a strength and a willingness to stick together and work things through that you won't find in other communities. But if I were to think of my previous community in Dublin, which was a great community, even organising a street party, it was really hard to get people out of the lethargy, to say, okay, let's get together, let's organise and let's get this done. And we in the village are very used to that. I see the village as a lifeboat, and the reason we came here was not to be more environmentally friendly, because I believe in Dublin we were probably living pretty much the most environmentally friendly life possible in an urban context. But for me, I see it as a place that in the future people will be able to survive in a much better way than they will in other areas like cities or even in other rural or suburban areas. And so I would like to see the village develop that concept of being a lifeboat, and to then also spread that, so that we provide hope and help to other communities.